Aren't you going to ask us what we had for breakfast?
Ooh.
Nothing.
You just want to say nothing.
Yeah. I like routine.
This is GRL Raw, the podcast where the GRL team tells you why they're different. Who the hell are they? Why should you want them fighting for you? The industry leader in law with over 180 years of combined experience. This team is here to shed light on crucial topics in law to keep you aware and informed, because it comes back to the primary point. We give a damn.
We got?
All right.
You're leading.
Oh, you got to crack it.
You got to, crack it,
Awkward.
and then you go?
Yeah. Welcome to episode 5 of GRL Law Season 2. We're switching it up a little bit today, and Bobby, the typical host, is now in our guest seat, and
Hot seat.
I, Sid Dona, am going to host today.
I like it.
Howdy.
Howdy.
We haven't recorded in a while.
No, I think I forget.
We got our new merch on.
If you can see it.
NFG.
There we go. Available now.
Hell yeah. What are we talking about today?
Police misconduct.
We are talking about police misconduct and starting off with a current event about police misconduct.
There's a few of them out there, but we picked one.
We just picked one for today.
Yep.
Ida Bell, Oklahoma is where we're talking about for our current event.
I
on
thought that
police
was a name.
misconduct.
Ida
No?
Bell.
You're like,
Okay.
Okay. Ida Bell, Oklahoma is in McCurtain County, Oklahoma.
No idea where it's at.
What?
I have no idea where that's at.
Oh, let me tell you. Border of Arkansas and Texas.
Okay.
A little bit of history about the county is it's more recently been named the Dallas-Fort Worth Hamptons. So there's mountains, lakes, clean water, and it's slowly becoming a very touristy portion or part of the South.
Over rich
people.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So in the beginning of March, a video is given to the local newspaper, not given to the local newspaper, is published by a local newspaper. And in that video are county commissioners and sheriff's deputies in the McCurtain County Sheriff's Office. And within the video, they are talking about their plan to kill, bury, murder journalists and how they're upset that they are not allowed to lynch black people.
You can't do that.
You cannot do that. And this video or this audio was recorded during a public meeting, published, and soon after. You have a question?
I do.
Okay.
How is this? This is a public meeting. How are they so brazen that they're talking about things of this nature in a public meeting being recorded?
So it was a automatic recording device based on voice.
Okay.
That was left in the public meeting.
But public meeting.
Based on a suspicion that county affairs would continue to be discussed after
The publicness of the meeting.
public meeting
Okay.
was over.
Okay.
And what they caught on this recording was a little bit different, but they were talking about the potential fantasy plot to murder the journalist that left the recorder in the public meeting.
Okay.
So the sheriff's office comes out and they make a formal statement. They don't talk about the substance of the video recording. They talk about the fact that it was illegally recorded.
So they don't talk about the problem. They talk about, oh, no. They point the finger and say what they did was illegal.
This is true. And it is illegal to record a conversation. If you're not a part of the conversation, you need consent of one person that is a part of the conversation.
In most circumstances.
In most situations,
Okay.
yes. And this guy had already talked to an attorney, planned it out. This is a public meeting, public space, public grounds. But backdrop of this episode, beginning of this episode, McCurran County Sheriff's Office, they did find that there was misconduct on behalf of one of the officers that was involved in this conversation.
You think?
Yeah.
Even in Oklahoma.
But this is the backdrop of our police misconduct. This isn't your typical police misconduct case that you think of when it comes to mind. Is this police misconduct? According to Oklahoma law, they had a finding of police misconduct. The sheriff is not resigning, so they're trying to find a way to forcefully remove him as an elected official.
Which is a theme for almost every police misconduct case that we're going to see today when we talk about this is removal of the bad apples from the cart is very difficult. They never like to concede that they are racist, that they're breaking the Constitution, that they're violating really the fundamentals that our country's based upon. They point the finger at everybody else. They do what the bad people, the legit bad people, like, you know, the last episode we had, tend to do. Blame everybody else, blame the victims. It's everybody else's fault. And they go on a warpath and they refuse to step down, even though they're caught red-handed, whether they were meaning or truly conspiring to kill somebody or not. Using racial slurs, talking about lynching people. You have no place in public office. No place in public office.
No. There's people that just shouldn't be in public office.
There's people that shouldn't have badges.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to talk about.
We are. All right.
Police misconduct.
What is police misconduct?
I think first, what is it not?
Okay.
Because a lot of people will talk about police misconduct. They'll say, this is police misconduct. They shouldn't have done this. This is wrong. But first, it's easiest to talk about what it's not.
Okay.
My favorite is entrapment.
Yep.
People come up with they have a preconceived notion of what entrapment is. It is not, police misconduct is not law enforcement sitting outside the local bar watching people stumble from their... That's funny. You forgot to take the lens off. The cover up. Sorry. It is not police misconduct to sit outside the bar, watch people who have been in the bar all day, walk to their car, drive, and try to drive home and then stop them for a legitimate traffic violation.
How is that not entrapment?
That is not entrapment.
They sat outside the door while you were inside. That's entrapment.
No, entrapment is when the government convinces you and in essence pressures you into committing an offense you otherwise would not have committed but for the government inducement.
Yep.
So a intoxicated person getting intoxicated, going to their car and driving intoxicated, the government did not hand them the beers and say, drink this and drive me home. If that's the case, that's entrapment.
Yep.
But law enforcement watching somebody, following them, and then pulling them over for a lawful reason, it's not entrapment, and it's not harassment at all. It's not a violation. The other thing it is not is officers don't have to tell you they're cops. That is one of the biggest myths of all time. That if I'm involved in some nefarious activity, if I ask the undercover officer if they're undercover, if they're a cop, and they say no, that somehow I get a free pass to my criminal conduct, that is not law enforcement misconduct.
I'm not gonna lie. That was I did think that there was maybe something to that.
Nope. That's
Interesting.
Not. Because here's the deal: law enforcement can lie.
Yeah.
They can lie in an investigation. They can tell you, "Hey, Mark over here ratted you out. He said you were the shooter. He watched you. He gave you the gun, but you were the one that shot him. He's putting you out. He's diming you out." Mm-hmm. And that could be absolutely false. And they do it all the time. They separate co-defendants, co-conspirators all the time, and they triangulate them, and they play them off each other. They lie their asses off.
So here's the thing. We already know what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've already
we got
been told.
it. My favorite, we got it on video.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you got it on video, you don't need me to confess to this, so why are we talking?
Yep.
They always say, we got it on video. There's a traffic camera. There's a ring camera, something like that. That is not police misconduct.
Yep.
Police misconduct is really what it boils down to is actions committed by law enforcement under the authority of their badge that violates an individual's, and this is going to be important, well-established constitutional right.
Okay.
Well-established is going to be key to what we talk about throughout this entire episode, because it's also a way that law enforcement and their employers do everything they can to weasel out of responsibility for crap that they do that is absolutely offensive and wrong.
So what you're saying is they operate by almost a completely different set of rules than you would think.
Not almost.
Completely.
Completely different set of rules, and we're going to get into it. And this is fun because our very first episodes of our homemade GRL Raw that started this all during COVID when we were bored, where we talked about pretextual stops. We drove through West Des Moines Police Department and
talked about all that was honestly one of the best because
all the
Bobby
different
and Matt go through the West Des Moines Police Department parking lot and point out all of the different
traffic violations
occurring within the parking lot to show that
it's not hard to stop somebody.
No.
But so we talked about this, and where we stopped short, we were just getting ready to do another episode talking about the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, which we'll get to today as well. And we never got that done because we decided to go fancy and professional with our friends.
Decided to do the real
Bing
deal.
Bang. Yeah.
The real deal.
Real deal.
All right. So does police misconduct happen in Iowa?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. And when we're talking about police misconduct, I think there's three primary, really the biggest issues.
Okay.
Excessive use of force.
Yep.
Wrongful arrest.
Yep.
And then illegal searches and seizures.
Yep.
And we'll talk about those as we go through it today. But actually, I was stumped initially because we've had a theme of big Iowa cases, important Iowa cases that have happened that have made their way to the U.S. Supreme Court, Iowa Supreme Court, up and down, all around. And I was like, what are we going to do for police misconduct? Mm-hmm. And we found the case. And I can't believe I didn't think of this case.
Well, yeah. Did you find the case or did you remember the case?
I remembered the case.
Okay.
It was one that I got to be involved in as a baby lawyer.
Yep.
Shortly after GRL started. But we have a title for this case, didn't we?
Yeah, we do.
With a title?
It is Iowa's Most Notorious Criminal, Cop Edition.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Let's hear about it.
People, hold on. Give it a pause.
Oh. Did it sink in?
It's sunk in.
Cop Edition.
Cop Edition. We are going to talk about the biggest criminal cop this state has ever known, or at least that we have ever known. And if somebody's got a bigger one, we'll do part two.
Report immediately. We'll do a podcast.
We will do part two. Because this dude, this is a bad dude. This is a bad dude.
Why don't you give us a little bit of a background of how you got involved in this case, or how you know what's the background of this case? Because I didn't know about this case. I've been digging into it over the last few years. This is something you've sat with for a while.
Yep. So my former boss, mentor, Pete Berger, had this case at the inception, representing a gentleman by the name of Octavius Bonds. And I don't know if his fiance or girlfriend, Erin Evans. And the short story is it was a traffic stop gone wrong.
Okay.
Old school, no video, shocker, with Des Moines Police Department. And the two officers were Merced Dodovic,
Okay.
who was the primary bad actor. I forget the guy's first name, but his partner was Maylander.
Yep. Jay Maylander.
Maylander. And these officers got out of control. They ultimately beat the crap out of Octavius Bonds with their asps. Those are the long. They flick them and then they get longer and then they beat the crap out of people with the metal part. Steel. Beat the crap out of Octavius. Hit Miss Evans while she was handcuffed with their asp as well. Mm-hmm. Pepper sprayed, knocked him unconscious, and it turned into a giant to me, it is the single most vivid example of what's wrong with our law enforcement accountability system, and honestly, prosecutors' office as well. And that's what we're going to get into. But the Iowa's most notorious criminal cop edition, the notorious cop in this case, name is Merced Dodovic. He's the bad guy.
He is a bad guy. He was a bad guy.
And we'll get into it.
So how does this come about? So you said that it all stems from a traffic stop. So what happens when you're involved in a traffic stop where the cop flicks up their ASP? Like, how does this come to light, especially in an age where there's no body cam?
It was a dark and stormy night.
Well, Reverend.
It was back September 13th, 2008.
Yep.
Octavius Bonds and we'll call her girlfriend because I'm not sure if they were formally engaged.
They were watching a movie before that.
They were tight. And they were on their way home.
Yep.
Aaron was driving, E-R-I-N. Aaron was driving. Octavius was in the back seat because the front seat was broken. And Maylander and Dodovic got a call. They were partners, and they got a call for an officer in need of assistance.
Okay.
So anytime officers get that call, they're
coming in
hauling ass, going
10 to 33 emergency lights. Everyone you're leaving your traffic stop.
If you were getting pulled over for OWI, you're getting let go that night.
Yeah, you're having a good night.
Well, yeah, maybe. Their blood pressure is like off the charts. Their pulse rate's at 180 to 190. And Aaron's vehicle wasn't a brand new, fully functioning vehicle, which is why Mr. Bonds was in the back seat because the front seat was broken. And he's a big dude, tall. He was a strong, fit, athletic guy. They come right up on her butt. She doesn't get over fast enough for their liking.
Okay. And
she's in the left lane, and she panics, and they go around her. The call gets called off, okay? So Dodovic and Maylander pull into, I want to say it was a Casey's nearby, wait for them to come by because they were going to pull them over and ask why they didn't get over fast enough. They pull them over, so the vehicle comes by.
Yep.
You can just kind of see it in your head. They pull them over and immediately start chastising Aaron, cussing at her, asking her if she was from America, asking if she was stupid, kind of just spitting out insults at her. And she freezes, she panics, and is having problems producing the information that they're demanding from her. They start yelling at her, get out of the car. She's not responding fast enough. I believe it was Dodovic pulls out his pepper spray and threatens to spray her in the face, at which point Octavius kind of reaches up and puts his hand, you don't need to do that, you don't need to do that. Things go downhill real quick from there. They pull her out, cuff her, put her on the curb. Octavius starts to get out of the vehicle to ask him why are they treating him like that. And then the officers go into overdrive with him because they see him. He's a tall, strong, fit young man who's kind of half in, half out of the vehicle, asking what they're doing to his girlfriend. Dodovic approaches him, sprays his face with pepper spray. He's trying to get it out of his eyes. The asp comes out. They start whomping on him.
I read something of where he was trying to wash his eyes off with the water on top of the patrol vehicle.
The water from the hood of Aaron's vehicle. He's trying to kind of wash his face out. They start beating him with the asps. At some point, knock him unconscious or spray him to a point where he falls into the vehicle. And I remember this part for the case very vivid. Is they kind of admitted to this part. He's unconscious. They pull him by his feet out of the vehicle. And what happens when you do that?
I'll hit your head.
So knock him even further. He has a head injury. Aaron gets up because she's worried about what they're doing to him. That's when Maylander whacks her twice with the asp. And they ultimately arrest both of them and charge them with interference with official acts and assault on a police officer.
And wrote a sob story of a police
report saying how they were going to fight him. They were assaulting him. They were threatening him, and they feared for their life, kind of stuff. And Polk County Attorney's Office, John P. Sarcone, now retired, prosecuted the crap out of the case.
That was my next question. So they wake up the next morning after a terrible night and a terrible experience with these
In jail.
terrible police officers. How many apologies do they get?
They're in Polk County Jail.
0.
They're in Polk County
Yeah.
Jail. So they arrested them. They booked them. They stayed the night. And then they're facing serious misdemeanors. Or Octavius was facing a serious misdemeanor. Aaron Evans, I believe, was a simple misdemeanor. But you would think, maybe we hear this story, prosecutors back off and don't go forward with it.
That's not the story we're about to hear.
Polk County Attorney's Office put the pedal to the metal and prosecuted it with everything they had. I don't think that the poor sap that had to prosecute the case was all about it, was too fired up about it.
Seems.
Boss says, you
Yeah.
got to go. And so we looked at it. They were charged September 17th, 2008. Jury trial was finally held on March 19th, 2009.
What happened?
Big fat, our favorite verdict, NFG.
NFG.
We got swag. We'll talk about that. But yeah, they were both found not guilty, which was a big part of the case.
Yeah, that's massive. It's not. No body cam footage.
No body cam footage, no in-car footage. There was a witness that was around. I don't remember if they were able to find her or not, but it was helpful for Octavius and Aaron. But the jury found him not guilty.
Which is in itself, I think, just kind of wild, thinking back to a time, no body cam.
And we weren't
Testimony.
at the stage we weren't at the stage we are 2020,
Yeah.
2021, 2022. The thin blue line was a lot thicker
Yeah.
back then. But they found him not guilty. And then immediately the civil lawsuit was filed, almost immediately, April 8th,
Yep.
2009. The civil lawsuit was filed in federal court. Interestingly enough, I think this is important. Des Moines Police Department did not fire Dadovic
How?
until June of 2009. They had his back.
Mm-hmm.
They had his back. Polk County Attorney's Office had his back and Maylander's back the entire way until it became obvious that, no,
This isn't what happened.
we got to bail.
Yeah.
We got to bail from this guy. They fire him, and the interesting part is you can't just fire a cop.
Why?
We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to tease that. You can't just fire a cop. It is the hardest job to ever get fired from. If you meet somebody and they say, hey, I was a police officer, I got fired,
Run.
run. Don't
Like,
date
quite
them.
literally, run.
Don't date them, literally. Don't hang out with them. Don't go into business with them because it's really hard to get fired as a police officer. And we'll get into that in more depth. But
It is also really easy to get rehired after you get fired. So.
I'll talk about that
Yeah.
too. But so Dadovic fought his firing. And in the meantime, September of 2011, he gets found intoxicated in a vehicle with the motor running. We call that OWI.
They call that
He was in
OWI.
actual physical control of the vehicle. But he also had his pea shooter with him.
Okay.
So he was drunk with a gun driving a car. He got charged with OWI and carrying weapons. And he ended up pleading guilty to OWI.
Okay.
And the civil lawsuit is going on. And
In the background, it takes a while to get up and running.
it takes forever. The city is fighting tooth and nail. You could not have had a more put together defense team than who Maylander, Dadovic, and the city had.
Interesting.
Each individual defendant had their own attorney.
Okay.
And then obviously Dadovic has his criminal defense attorney
Yep.
at that point. And then the city had their own attorney.
Yep.
And they were battling the whole way. They raised the defense of qualified immunity, which we'll talk about, saying we didn't know that we couldn't beat somebody over the head with an asp because he's big and black and scary.
Yep.
And so that's actually where I got involved in the case, was in the summary judgment stage of the federal civil lawsuit.
Okay.
and we had to defend against them trying to throw the case out. Prevailed on that. Judge Pratt said, no, there's enough here to get to a jury.
Yep.
Interestingly, they had an automatic right to appeal that finding to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals down in St. Louis and in Minneapolis.
It's a good way to add a solid year on.
2 years in
Yep.
civil cases with the 8th Circuit.
Yep.
And right before that was going to get argued before the 8th Circuit, the case settled.
Okay. And that was in 2012?
It was 2011.
Oh.
And during this time, right before, so I
Yep.
messed up my timeline there for
Okay.
you. Yeah. During this time, December of 2011, the feds come in.
Uh-oh.
Yep. And the feds ultimately indict Dodovic and Maylander for civil rights violations.
Okay.
Believe it or not, it's a crime to violate somebody's civil rights, even if you're a police officer.
I think we heard that with Derek Chauvin.
Yes.
He was.
Just like,
Yep.
But again, the feds came in after the fact.
Yep.
They didn't like where things went with the state. They said, hold my stein.
Hold my stein.
We're coming in, we're indicting them. Here, the feds came in first.
Okay.
Indicted them.
So that's not typical.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on how aggressive and how much local law enforcement, local prosecutors are willing to investigate
Okay.
and hold people accountable.
Yep.
Here, local was doing nothing but defend these guys.
Yeah, they were saying,
Polk County Attorney's Office wasn't hearing it. Iowa Attorney General's Office wasn't stepping in to do anything with it. So the feds said, hold my stein.
Yep.
We're coming to investigate. They actually have a special team out of D.C. that investigates civil rights violations.
have they always had this?
I don't know, but they had it at the time.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And they brought their special team in, did the interviews, got the information, and indicted their asses.
So what were the charges in the indictment?
Excessive use of force,
'Kay.
violation of civil rights, and then obstruction of justice for falsifying their investigative reports.
And this was a grand jury.
Grand jury indicted
That,
them.
as we talked about
Absolutely.
last time, grand jury, it's a charging, but the decision made by lay people.
The people.
The people.
Yep. Around that time, civil lawsuit settles.
Okay.
I don't think they necessarily released all the details of the settlement. It was I think what they released was $500,000 total. That's what they released.
Yep.
And then my favorite part is after that happens, in March of 2012, so perjury, the perjury that they committed trying to get Octavius Bonds and Aaron Evans convicted.
They testified.
They testified. They lied their asses
got on
off.
the stand and lied their asses off.
And compared to what they said in other statements, it was clear that they committed perjury. Polk County Attorney's Office would not do anything. They would not charge them with assault. They would not charge them with perjury. They would not do anything at all. They're defending their officers to the end.
One thing that we back up a little bit, why? And maybe this is just for us, it's normal, but like prosecuting attorneys the foundation of all of their cases rely on these officers. These are officers in and out of their courtrooms, not their courtrooms.
Oh, they think it's their courtrooms.
Yeah, the courtrooms that they frequent in and out as frequently as they do. So these are almost of the same entity, correct? Like
They're tight.
Yeah, they're buddies.
They are going to do and they shouldn't, but in this situation, they did everything they could to try to CYA, to try to cover the asses of Des Moines Police Department and these officers. They weren't going to do anything. Had the feds not stepped in, Polk County was washing their hands of it, and we're going to try to – they weren't doing anything.
They made it 4 years at this point.
Yep.
Without – yeah.
So feds indict them. And when the feds indict somebody, they usually have they usually have a pretty darn good case, especially in Iowa. They do their homework. Polk County, out of nowhere, in March of 2012, decides that they're going to come running to the table and they're going to charge Maylander and Dodovic with perjury and assault causing bodily injury.
Okay.
Because, God damn it, they're going to get their justice suddenly. dumb.
Yeah.
So dumb. They go, thanks, feds, for doing our work.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be on your side.
You're like, it is a crime to lie on the stand. I forgot about that one.
We should tell our officers about
Yeah.
that. So Dodovic goes to trial.
Okay.
Doesn't plead.
Okay.
Does the well, he's the original, right? So what was the guy in Minnesota?
Chauvin.
Chauvin.
Yep.
Does the Chauvin. Goes to trial. Maylander flips, testifies.
Question: did he have his lawyer's phone number written on the palm of his hand when the jury verdict
No.
came out?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
That was just a random thought. I forgot Chauvin had the attorney's number on his hand.
No. So
He apparently might have needed that, though.
he did.
Yeah.
So Maylander pled. He flipped. Dodovic goes off the trial. He gets convicted August 8, 2012.
Okay.
In federal court, when you get convicted, they got a book, and it's literally this thick, that helps them determine what your appropriate sentence
What's
should
it called?
be. It's called the Federal Sentencing Guidelines. And when it gets to his sentencing,
Yep.
and when you get there, you get this big long report that gets done, and they do the math, and it's like algebra 2,
Yep.
maybe algebra 2.5 if there is a thing, probably not.
I never got that far.
Me either. Guideline range was, so the suggested range according to the Federal Sentencing Bible
Okay.
was 151 to 188 months in prison.
Which is crazy to me because the federal system is known for having extremely long sentences.
The maximum punishment that Dodovic was facing was 10 years in prison.
Okay.
So at that range, the maximum punishment kicks in 120 months.
Yep.
Is probably what he should have got. The judge at sentencing gives him 20 months in prison, which doesn't happen.
No.
Doesn't happen
And not in federal court.
unless you're a police officer.
Are you getting 20 months in prison for marijuana?
Well, hopefully not, but not for drugs.
Yeah.
Not
Well over?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
20 months is, I mean, that's a camp. You're going to camp for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, but the most interesting, fascinating part, which really triggers some things, is the prosecutors appealed the sentence and said, hey, you didn't give him long enough in prison. This is wrong.
Yep.
They appeal it. And the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, which probably, I mean, I'm taking some artistic liberties here, and I'm not stating this as a fact.
Okay.
Okay. Probably have the blue line flags in the back of all of their cars, right? You don't want to be a criminal defendant. You don't want to be suing cops. You don't want to be suing law enforcement. You don't want to be a person who's been wronged and have your case in front of the 8th Circuit. Usually doesn't go well. They come down and say, that's not long enough.
That's when you know it's bad.
It's bad.
Which also, we talked about this morning. I don't work in federal court with criminal. It's something I've never seen where they ask for someone that's already served out their sentence or serving out the sentence to be asked to be resentenced.
Yeah. Where the prosecutor's like, hold on, that wasn't long enough in
That's
prison. Can
just
you do
quite
that?
literally seems like a nightmare to me.
Well, prosecutors
Yeah.
got their wish. 8th
Yep,
Circuit
they
said,
did.
nope, that's not enough.
Well, they didn't get their wish.
They didn't get their wish.
And why did they not get their wish?
Well, you had some. So it comes. He serves out his term.
Yep.
He serves out his 20 months while the appeal is pending. So he's a free man running around the Des Moines metro, Clive
Yep.
area,
Urbandale.
making girlfriends,
Ex-girlfriends.
He's getting back to what do they call that? Reassimilated into society. Reintegrated into society.
Yep.
He's a changed man.
Yep.
Changed man. Yes?
No.
No.
Is this where I take over?
Yeah.
I'll take over.
Come on, you
Okay.
did digging. You did digging.
So he is potentially going to be resentenced. I'm like crazy.
He is scheduled to be resentenced on April 20th, 2015.
He sure is. And as one does, a few days before they're potentially going back to prison, concert. There's a nearby concert. So
Party it up.
who do you call? Your ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
Who has a boyfriend. I'm just kidding. But
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
She did have a
Factually
boyfriend,
accurate.
and it was 2 days before, and they went to a folk singer in Chicago concert But he was rendezvousing with an ex-girlfriend who actually had a no contact order against him after they lived together. So it had a
Protect and serve. And be served.
Chapter 236 petition, which means there's some sort of finding of abuse. And they drove to Chicago together and to go to this concert, and he killed her on the way back to Chicago. They estimate it was around exit 53, which is still in Illinois, before a toll. They have his car going through a toll, but they believe that he drove back with her dead body, and they believe that he strangled her with a phone charger.
Those damn phone chargers will kill you every time.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's not
You'll
funny.
never look at a phone charger again.
So he murders his...
He murders his girlfriend. At 1 a.m. is the estimate of before he's supposed to be resentenced.
Holy crap.
Ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Actually,
Ex-girl-
it's his ex-girlfriend he's rendezvousing with that
Is
has.
it re-ex if you cause their death?
I don't know. Maybe if you drive a few hours with their body, then
Okay.
you
Bad.
go
So
to
he murdered...
He murdered her. He comes back in, and this is the middle of the night, like 1 o'clock. They were able to put together some sort of a timeline from photos. There's videos of her dancing on a table at the concert a few hours before she's killed. So he drives back with the dead body. He goes to a local Walmart. I told you this was my favorite part about the story.
We can't laugh about...
Yeah, true.
Sorry.
He goes to a local Walmart and he buys a shovel, black bed sheets, and something else, and 2 Red Bulls.
What flavor?
I'm gonna go sugar-free. I don't know. They didn't say what flavor.
Okay.
2 hours later, he goes back to a different store and he buys a robe. And they find him hanging and her dead body in a garage in a murder-suicide the morning before he's set to be resentenced. The other thing I found...
Let's pause on that. That's bad. That's absolutely tragic and terrible.
So what makes it even
Awful.
worse is about 20 days before, there's a court order that came through in this federal case that he's about to be resentenced on. And this cop's from Bosnia, and his family moved here in the middle of the war. Some of the sentencing considerations were the fact that he was war-torn, like was in the middle of war country as a child.
Traumatized.
Like he's got like chronic PTSD. Probably does have like altered responses to fear.
Not somebody you want to give a badge to, but okay.
No.
Okay.
But that was about 20 days before the murder-suicide. The court actually puts in an order where they're discussing the sentencing factors and talks about how he was not sadistic. He wasn't doing this to hurt
The
people.
defense filed their brief arguing these things.
And something that I just feel like gives you a little bit of the goosebumps when you figure out what happens just 15, 20 days later, where he kills his ex-girlfriend off of an exit with a phone cord.
Yeah. Not a good showing. And this is somebody who stayed on the force for way too long. We looked up published opinions. There's published. I mean, he was
Multiple.
fighting. He sued the chief when she fired him. Did everything he could to keep his job. Kind of got his job back for a hot second. Then got fired again. Polk County Attorney's Office wouldn't prosecute him until the feds stepped in. And that's one of those things that you look at and you say, there are some protections in place because states tend to protect their own and prosecutors tend to protect their own. And you need that federal oversight in these situations. You wish there could have been more and more aggressive, but it's an absolute example. It's a tragic example of where police misconduct can take situations and take people to a point where there's no return. And
And this is an officer going through litigation.
Yeah.
Too. Like
Constantly.
Yes. Multiple different legal troubles happening from different avenues, continuing to be on the force, continuing to be out free.
And, well, the chief, Bradshaw, at the time was absolutely vilified for trying to fire him and trying to put an end to it. And then you have the prosecution just would not let go and wouldn't do anything after the fact when the facts were abundantly clear that what happened was absolutely wrong, was perjury, was false, and they didn't do anything until the feds came in and said, well, let me show you how this is done.
Yeah. So how does this happen? What are the protections in place that allow this type of scenario to happen?
All of them. So it's when you protect, you empower and you embolden misconduct. When you don't call it out, when you don't adequately investigate it, when you don't take remedial steps right off the bat, you allow that monster to grow and to have more control and to be more difficult to deal with. And you have a couple of different areas. One, you have protections that exist by law.
Yep.
Which is the Iowa legislature has created extra special protections for law enforcement and first responders, but primarily for law enforcement to protect them.
Yep.
The courts have created immunity, different immunity protections if you want to sue law enforcement for what they do wrong.
Which immunity is a bar on a lawsuit.
It's a
It doesn't
protection from
matter
lawsuit.
about the merits of your claim. It's just saying, hey, this fits into a certain category of cases, which says that you're going home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have courts who are
Overzealous, maybe?
no.
Yeah.
As we do, we call each
Yeah.
other out. No, they protect. They are critical of plaintiffs who bring lawsuits for violations and require you to have such a higher standard of proof than would otherwise be applicable in a normal lawsuit. So the courts protect
Yep.
the offenders. The legislature protects the offenders. And quite frankly, the public protects the offenders as well. And you have all that put together that it's a perfect example. This case is a perfect example of what's wrong with our system as it relates to police misconduct. And quite frankly, it just got worse in the state of Iowa last Friday.
Yeah, what happened? Time to get into that. Well, should we go back to the above the law a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we were starting, as we talked about at the beginning of this, the GRL Raw extra
Pre-donut.
extra raw. No, I was here.
Were you?
Yeah.
You were.
I was here
I
that
knew
summer.
I knew
Yeah.
that. Okay. My bad.
And you guys did an episode about, it was called Above the Law, about qualified immunity. And this was a big topic that summer. It was the summer of George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, and qualified immunity is a bar to a lawsuit.
It is, but it's a defense. It's
Yes.
what's called an affirmative defense that any law enforcement officer or employee now in Iowa, an employee of the state or a municipality can raise, saying that the law was not clearly established at the time, so I should not be held responsible for breaking the law.
Yep.
I might have broke it, but I didn't know better at the time. Therefore, I have absolute immunity, and you should dismiss this case.
So as a comparison, if I were to commit a crime,
Let's say run a red light and hit somebody.
okay, I didn't know it was a crime to run a red light.
Yeah.
Does that help me?
Not at all in normal world.
Okay. So we're operating under actual completely different set of inferences, standards, kind of.
Nobody else gets this defense unless you are an employee of the state or an employee of a municipality.
So law enforcement officers,
Yep.
some of the most protected.
Not some. They are absolutely the most protected individuals in this state, other than maybe the governor and president.
Prosecutors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about
yeah.
other than prosecutors.
Prosecutors have absolute immunity so long as it happens. They can lie, cheat, steal, do all kinds of bad things. They can withhold evidence. They can do anything they want as long as it happens within the bounds of a case.
Yep.
After a case is filed, they have absolute, utter 100% immunity. You can't sue them. Judges are the same way. They could be completely wrong, illegal, misconduct, but if it happens within a case, during the case's pendency,
Yep.
they cannot be
There's
sued.
nothing.
They cannot be sued.
So is it a good thing that officers have qualified immunity?
No.
Yeah, okay. What's the difference between absolute and qualified then?
Absolute is you can't, if I sue you
Yep.
and I say, Sydney, you were prosecuted and you withheld important evidence after the case was filed,
And I say, I'm a prosecutor.
you say, I'm a prosecutor, dismiss this now, you can't sue me for that.
Yep.
And it has to be dismissed. Qualified immunity is just that, it's qualified.
Okay.
So you don't get to raise it and say, just because who I am, it gets dismissed. You have to show something that allows you to take that defense.
And what do we need to show?
You didn't know better.
Okay.
Okay, so we go back to the Iowa football scandal.
Yep.
When we talked about that, where the coaches were claiming, I didn't know I couldn't be racist.
Yeah, we talked about, I said, they said their defense to the lawsuit was they didn't know that it was unlawful to intentionally discriminate based on race. But these are legitimate conversations we have
So we
behind
mocked
the
that.
scene.
We
Yes.
mocked that. We're like, that is the dumbest thing ever. It is, under qualified immunity, a valid legal defense.
Yeah.
I didn't know better.
Yeah, I didn't know it was unlawful to hit someone with a baton 10 times while they had their hand behind their back and their eyes were closed for 15 seconds. And then someone
I knew
across
you-
the street was screaming frog. Quite literally, how are you going to find a case factually in that?
I knew I couldn't do it 30 times, so I did 15.
Yes. But did you think about the fact that someone was screaming frog? How does that change it?
Frog
You're
changes
like,
it all.
It changes it all.
Depends on your judge. But that is
Yeah.
absolutely what happens in these cases.
Yes.
And they say, well, we didn't know better. We should get the benefit. In these cases, law enforcement gets the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
If it's a gray area, then the courts are like, well, they didn't know better. Gone is your case. And in the last, not last episode, but when we talked about the police misconduct.
Yep.
In our amazingly home video production of GRL Raw, Matt and I talked about qualified immunity and how the Iowa Constitution claims were better.
Yep.
Were better and weren't as high of a burden. Qualified immunity wasn't as big of a player in those cases. And we even complimented our Iowa Supreme Court.
You did. I listened to it this morning and excited.
I was proud of them.
Yeah.
I was very proud of them because what they said is, we're not going to tolerate that shit in Iowa. Like if you don't exercise all due care and you violate people's rights, you can be held responsible for the monetary damages you cause to people.
Which is in line with Iowa.
That is kind of an Iowa
Yep.
tradition. Like we're gonna protect people. We're gonna protect our rights. Our rights we prize. Our liberties we will maintain.
The law is slow. The justice system's slow. Iowa tries to be a little bit faster.
Yeah. Until last Friday.
Yeah.
Last Friday, our Iowa Supreme Court decided Burnett versus Smith.
Okay.
And what they did in Burnett versus Smith is they flat out ripped the rug out that we were complimenting them on.
Yep.
They took that rug, they put it through the shredder and said, nah, that's too hard to apply. That no longer exists in Iowa.
Where do we go from there?
Banana in the tailpipe. They didn't even grease the banana. They just put it in the tailpipe.
They gave us no warning.
They gave us no warning. They just flat out yanked that rug out from under us and said, you can no longer sue for money damages for a violation of the Iowa Constitution. Just ripped it out. Not happy about that. We'll save what we say behind the scenes. But it's not good. It is not
It's
good
not
for
good.
Iowans.
No.
So along those lines, the last couple of years, Iowa legislature was creating more qualified immunity defenses,
Yep.
those types of things. But in essence, what qualified immunity is now, and they ripped out the Iowa constitutional claim, so we're stuck again with federal law, is We didn't know better. And as a plaintiff, if we're going to sue law enforcement for a violation, we got to show that they knew better in order to get anywhere in court. And if we do convince a district court judge that they knew better, they get automatic appeal to either
Then where are
Iowa
we
Supreme
going?
Court
Or the 8th Circuit.
And it's so the legal system is set up to protect these the law enforcement misconduct a way that nobody else gets these protections. Nobody else. Nobody.
No other profession. We talked about
like
this
we
one.
talked
Yeah.
about,
No
prosecute.
other profession gets any sort of no other protection or citizen even. I mean,
No, they don't get these
You
protections.
don't get any sort of
Does a doctor get to say, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to cut that muscle?
No, you say read your fucking book.
Yeah, you should have passed that
Like,
test.
yeah, you should have passed the test like 10 years ago, partner.
Right. Nope.
Yeah.
But law enforcement gets to know, I didn't know I couldn't shoot him twice. I knew I couldn't shoot him 5 times, but 2, I thought I was good. And that's a legit legal defense
Yeah.
that we have to overcome. So qualified immunity is one of the reasons why this stuff keeps happening. The other is there is zero incentive for an objective, unbiased investigation, and they don't happen.
Why?
So it's the police themselves.
Yes.
We try to sue them, but the police themselves in these investigations.
They have their own quote unquote Bill of Rights.
Oh, yeah, but before we get there, you ready? In the city of Des Moines, if the Des Moines Police Department, if a police officer with Des Moines Police Department shoots somebody, who do you think investigates that?
Pause.
Ready? Drum roll. Rodney would get mad, but
The Des Moines Police Department?
yeah.
Oh my God.
So they self-investigate, and it's in their...
Such an objective investigation.
We have one of these pending, and you ask them, did you know this officer? Well, yeah, I used to work with that officer. And you're investigating them shooting somebody? Uh-huh. And who gets on the hook if they broke the law when they shot this person? The city of Des Moines.
Yeah.
Which is their employer.
I was like, no one?
The city of
Yeah.
Des Moines, which is their employer. So what are they going to do? What are they going to find?
They're going to find absolutely nothing.
Suddenly the fishing knife becomes a machete.
Yes.
Right?
Above the head.
Suddenly a standing still becomes a charge.
Uh-huh.
And they are there to protect each other. They protect each other.
Yep.
And there is no incentive for an objective investigation that holds people legitimately accountable. Because what that does is if you do it right, you open yourself up. It's like investigating yourself. Did you run that red light, Sydney?
Absolutely not.
No. Why? Because if you did, you're paying.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the exact same thing. So
Yeah.
they have every incentive to be like, oh, no, it's fine. You
It
did
was justified.
Justified. You did everything right. You're okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. We'll put you on another neighborhood.
Sorry for the inconvenience. Here's your
Here's your severance.
Yeah.
Or not your severance. Here's your bonus
Yeah.
check and your 22 high fives between the scene of the crime and you getting to the station. Yeah.
immediately. Yeah. I mean,
I hope we get to talk about that case.
I do too.
In more detail.
I do too.
But the other one is the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. And
You're telling me they quite literally have a different Bill of Rights than you and I.
yep.
Okay.
So we have this constitutional Bill of Rights thing, which keeps getting eaten away at by our courts and bad decisions. Except so far for trash pulls. See what I did there? For
Don't
now.
take it away.
For now.
Or-
For now. We might have to come back to that. But they actually have, the Iowa legislature created a special law just for law enforcement, I believe it's fire department, first responders.
Okay.
Bill of Rights. And it is a law that exists that protects them even more than ordinary citizens, even more than qualified immunity, even more than crappy investigations.
Okay.
And what it does is it puts up and adds to the investigative barriers and then makes things suddenly confidential, makes things not to be able to be used against them in a criminal prosecution. It gives them the right to see what's being said about them before they respond. It gives them all these special privileges that normal people would not have if you were being investigated on by your employer, for example.
So you're literally being shielded by like every single avenue as an officer from both civil and criminal liability.
If it is yes, you have every protection that exists. And the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, I actually did a blog on it. If you Google it, it's like, I don't know, 4th on Google when I looked at it on Iowa Bill of Rights. Iowa Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. If you shoot somebody and they're doing an investigation, administrative investigation, you can say, A, I get an attorney before I talk.
Mm-hmm.
B, I want to watch my camera. I want to watch my body cam footage first. I want to see the complaint that's being made against me, and then I'll respond.
Maybe.
If I want to.
Yeah.
And if I do respond, you can't use that against me in a criminal prosecution. And if you are my superior asking me about this, that's confidential. I can tell you anything I want, and that's confidential. And that can't be used against me.
There is no other situation where your conversation with your superior is confidential against you.
No.
In a criminal...
criminal or even civil liability situation. And then on top of that, law enforcement has the ability to appeal getting fired.
And no other profession definitely has that one, maybe.
Who gets to appeal? Hey, you're fired. No, I'm not.
That's me when Corey fires me on a random day.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll
like,
have
I appeal.
An administrative appeal process where you get to say, no, actually I want the Civil Service Commission, which is a special commission to come in and review this and have a hearing, and then they decide if I actually should be fired by my boss. And then if they agree that I should be fired by my boss, then I get to appeal to the district court and drag this out even longer. That's why Lourdes Haydenfeld, police officer with Des Moines PD, I'm using her name, she got fired because we turned her in for lying. We caught her lying on body camera. She claimed something happened. She claimed our client swerved at her and almost hit her
Yeah.
or it did hit her,
Yeah.
and it absolutely didn't happen. We confronted her with it. She still claimed that it happened. She lied. She flat out lied. She got fired. I actually got to testify at the Civil Service Commission.
This was right before pre-donut.
Mm-hmm. And even the Civil Service Commission said, nope, you're fired. And then she appealed it. And
You were dealing with this for like a while.
yeah, I was ready to testify.
Because you were like the problem child.
I was, yeah. Yeah, I was tattletale. Got fired.
You're Des Moines Police Department's problem
They
child.
were they were my friend on this one because I think they realized she was a bad apple and wanted to
Fair.
get rid of her. They ended up having to pay her. They ended up settling the case. They paid her $25,000 to go away. Fired. Finally fired. They paid $25,000 for her to be
because
gone.
she lied.
Flat lie.
Blatantly lied.
Flat
to
lied.
the point where you could prove it.
To the point where her own police supervisors were like, no, you lied.
You're a liar.
And then the Civil Service Commission is like, no, you lied. And then the fact that you can't get to the fact that you were wrong and can't admit to the wrong, we're going to fire you. Bonkers. $25,000 in her pocket. Now, we're done. We're about done.
We are.
But we have to equip citizens.
We do. But we also have to equip officers.
Ooh, do we?
Yeah, I'm switching it up a little bit.
Shit.
I'm
Okay.
doing
You're
the
the hostess.
We're doing the do's and don'ts, and then we're going to equip both citizens and officers together in one.
Oh, you're audibling on me. Mm-hmm. So this isn't, so we're not officially done. We're at do's and don'ts, so we actually get extra time because we're at do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And then we come back.
Yeah.
And then we equip.
Yeah, no, we're going to do it all again.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, we'll just go all the way through, I think.
That looks like a
Does
really
that
long
work?
do's and don'ts. Whatever.
Well,
You're the hostess.
I'm only going to do a little bit of it.
I'm just here for the color commentary.
Okay. Title, I'm a cop looking for advice on how to find answers for myself about legal issues.
On Reddit.
Yeah. Maybe not the first place to start.
Still can't fire him.
I've been a cop for 2.5 years now, and I have seen my coworkers doing quite a few things that I know would absolutely not fly in court. Some of the mandatory training things that the office requires us to go to have dodgy info I suspect is not correct. When I Google these things, I get Supreme Court cases that are far too broad to learn from. How do I find cases specifically dealing with the same topics that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis? I found this the other day, and this is not a normal like legal advice subreddit question, but I saw it, figured this was a great question for us to try to ask. I don't know that we have the answer.
It's not, can I have my friend stab me at my funeral?
It's not. But it's an officer that's seeing that there's potentially something wrong within the jurisdiction that he's working in. And in the comments, he's talking about, I see officers all the time doing searches when there's maybe reasonable suspicion for a frisk.
Okay.
So what do we do to answer both citizens? How do we go forward when the court's not going to help or the legislator's not going to help? What can we do?
Well, you keep running your head into the wall. But to answer the officer's question, if you want to, go to law school, teach you how to read case law and figure it out. But the short answer is find somebody you can trust in the legal field.
Yep.
That has that knowledge, that can tell you specifically what is and is not acceptable. And you do have to appreciate and understand that there are
gray areas.
There's gray areas, and there's lines that are broad, which is why qualified immunity started.
Yeah.
I think it's just got out of control. So you can't be hitting people over the head with, small mistakes. But if there's overt misconduct that if you don't need legal training
to know
that it's wrong, then
I
you
like
can
that.
take that to the bank and say, it's wrong. That's something I need to either document, address, or report. If it's based upon an interpretation of a Supreme Court decision, I appreciate your concern, and we need more officers like this that are conscientious about
It's noble that you want to know,
100%.
but I also want to know.
But if you can't look at it and say, I know the answer to that, then that's not the one to blow the whistle on.
Yep.
Make the whistle blowing matter. Because if you start off crying wolf, we're talking to the wolf the next episode, then people aren't going to listen, and you're quickly going to be out of a profession that we need more people like you in.
Yeah. And that was his concern. Like in the comments, he's like, I don't want to overstep. If I'm the one that is the person that calls out one of my officers with me at a scene for overstepping, I better damn well know that they're overstepping.
Think of it this way: if you, as a normal human being, a normal citizen, look at that and say, no, let him breathe.
Yep.
Right? Get off his freaking neck. Don't choke. Don't hit him. Don't hit a handcuffed person with the asp. Those types of things. It's a no shit Sherlock kind of moment. That's when you need to do something. Step in, because you got to protect yourself as well. But if you need extra legal training, find somebody that you can trust, find somebody you can rely on to give you that information, but you got to know what to do with it. Yeah. And that's where it comes in the equipping citizens.
Yep.
Rule number one to any interaction with law enforcement that you believe is going too far, you have to maintain your composure.
Yes.
You have to maintain and understand that you are going to they are going to try to vilify you. You have to handle everything above board, extra special credit. Like, you have to handle yourself.
Anything you say and do will be used against you in ways that you can not even imagine.
Even if you do it right, they're going to try to flip it. And that's where the second one is: document the hell out of these situations. Yep. Audio. I think what I love about the Oklahoma case,
audio recording.
Audio.
Yeah.
Audio is most powerful because people don't know what's happening. When you pull your phone out and you say, you can't search my shit, I know you can't search this, you can't do this, you can't, I know my rights.
They're looking straight at the video.
You're not catching any misconduct. All you're doing, that's just a bad idea. They're going to say, I thought he was pulling out a gun, I shot him. Record it. Audio record it. That's the most powerful in my opinion. And the third one is, if you are charged with an offense arising out of police misconduct, do not plead guilty. Yep. Do not plead guilty. You have to fight it, and you can actually use the defense on the criminal case to set up, like Dodovic, like Maylander, with the Octavius Bonds case. They used the criminal case to set up the officers to catch a liar. Yep. And use those. A lot of people look at criminal charges as a bad thing. It's an opportunity. And if it's an indictable serious misdemeanor, you get the right to depositions. That's what happened with that case is deposition. Use it.
Yep.
Don't plead guilty. Fourth, report the hell out of these.
Even if you know nothing is going to happen.
Even if you're not going to make a buck, make a written report, just like with the school situation. Report, put it in writing, and at least it goes into a file. They're on notice. Things keep happening. What's the first thing we request in these cases? Any and all complaints.
That's what we're looking for, too, is 5 years down the road, we come along someone where the same officer does the same exact thing and oversteps in the same way, and no one's ever reported it before.
This is not the first time, I promise you.
And we need you to report it.
And the final one is follow through.
Yep.
It is the most miserable, longest, mind-sucking. Like it takes your mental, physical, emotional
Especially when
capital.
you've got the state on the other
The
side.
government wants to crucify you,
Yeah.
do everything bad they can to you. See it through. See it through. It's going to take a long time, but we need those heroes that are willing to say, all right, I'll call you on it.
Yep.
And we're respectfully defiant.
Hell yeah.
Those people that are willing to see it through are the ones that are able to force that change and have a positive impact. Just follow through, see it through, and give them hell.
And accountability.
Accountability only happens if they get their feet to the fire.
Put their feet in that fire.
Yeah, burn that. All right, that's all we
right.
got for episode 5.
See you on episode 6.
Good hosting.
Hell yeah.
See you next time.
We can't change the past, but we will change your future. GRL Law. Thanks for tuning in to GRL Raw. Check us out at grllaw.com.